Hey everyone, welcome to this edition, this March 7th edition of the Cartoon Flashback. And we are going to take a look. Hold on for a second. Alright, sorry about that. Ironically, the phone rings when I'm about to do this. But anyway, in this edition of the Cartoon Flashback, we're going to talk about, of course, what you see down on the titles, Here is what you see on the screen. We're going to talk about Biker Mice from Mars, the 2006 edition. And ironically, just recently, I finished using Windows DVD Maker to complete the entire Biker Mice series. 2006 series, that is. And I will say this. From what I saw when it was broadcast on 4Kids TV, and from what I've seen otherwise, I have to say that I gotta give a lot of credit to the creators of the Biker Mice franchise. In this day and age of having franchises be rebooted and started over again and stuff like that, I gotta give him credit for not rebooting, in a sense, the series, but actually continuing it from the original. I like that idea. I really do. I like the idea that they continued the movie. I mean, not the movie, but continued the series from the original. That the series was basically a continuation from the original series. I loved that idea. And I love the fact that it takes place about a few years later. The plot, very interesting, very intriguing. Basically, we're back in the same premise almost as we were in the original series. But here, it's a little bit more different. The plot basically evolves around a mouse that we saw that was introduced to us during the second season and the third season, and that is Stoker. Stoker, of course, has built this regenerator that can help save Mars. Basically, it helps save life and preserve life on Mars, from what I understand. But unfortunately, the regenerator that's on Mars gets destroyed. So Stoker basically has to tell the mice, mostly the Biker Mice and Carbine, that the only way he's going to be able to get them another regenerator is to go back to Earth. And that's exactly what happens. Another unique perspective about this, too, when it comes to the Stoker character, is that seemingly in between both series, basically years, if you will, he disappears for a while and then reappears under a mask identity that does get discovered by the Biker Mice. And it's a masked identity he keeps with him even when he goes back to Earth. Now the concept's pretty good. I mean, we do get a lot more interaction and a lot more episodes involving Stoker. We get more interactions involving Carbine than we ever have in the original. And again, it just plays off some of what happened in the original series. I mean, we do get episodes with Lawrence Limburger and Carbuncle and Grease Pit. We get those. We get the Pit Boss again, which is pretty damn cool. We get a lot of that. We even get, of course, with a new series, we get, of course, some new villains. And the main new villains are the Catatonians, who want this regenerator. They want the regenerator to take control. And they're kind of like Plutarchians in a sense, where they're easily beaten and everything. So it's kind of like the Catatonians have basically taken the place of the Plutarchians. But overall, the series is, I know I sound like a broken record here, folks, and I apologize, but the series is pretty good. There's no doubt about it. There are some situations, some episodes that really, make you wonder, is this going to happen? Did this happen? Has it happened? It really makes you wonder. Okay? You also find out that apparently somehow during, I guess, sometime in the past, I don't know if it was the 70s or the 80s or whatever, there's a new human villain here, the new human antagonist, Ronald Rump, a play on Donald Trump. Ronald Rump has been associated with the Catatonians, and at some time in the past, I guess Stoker ended up on Earth, and he had to make a deal with Rump to make a regenerator there to save Throttle's life. So, a little bit of an interesting twist to a backstory of how the regenerator came about, but overall pretty good. Of course, we do get introduced. We do get reintroduced to Rimfire. He shows up in an episode. Basically, in one episode, Rimfire temporarily takes Throttle's place because Throttle is called back to Mars because he's been promoted from commander to the next level. And that's an episode, from what I understand, you have to see. It's called Breakup. So, but again, and that's an episode that makes you wonder: did they or did they not? But then of course we get introduced to a new female mouse. We don't know her name just yet. She shows up in the three-part story, Once Upon a Time on Earth. She shows up there. And then we get our first rock musical in animated television history, from what I understand. Yes, it's basically the last episode of the series is called Turf Wars, and it's been promoted as the first rock opera musical in animated history. But what's interesting about Turf Wars, ladies and gentlemen, is it does showcase the return of a certain character that actually developed a cult fan base. Well, not a cult fan base, but a huge fan base in her 3 appearances in the 3-part finale of the original series, Once Upon a Time on Mars, from the original Biker Mice from Mars series. And of course, we're talking about Harley. And what's interesting here is you have Harley turn bad. And a lot of fans question why would the creators go in this direction? Well, apparently the backstory, and not to spoil anything if you haven't seen it yet, but apparently the backstory is after she was taken away by Mace at the end of Once Upon a Time on Mars Part 3, apparently after everybody was leaving, that's when all of a sudden her and Mace reappear, but as Mace teleports away, she gets blown up. Basically, just like Vinny, she gets half her face blown off. And then she sees that the mice are leaving without her, and she becomes bitter about it. It's like, wait a minute, you guys didn't even notice I'm back here? So basically, throughout the episode, she becomes bitter towards the mice. Throughout time, she became bitter and just full of disdain and hatred. But apparently, somewhere in this episode, I'm not totally sure, I haven't seen all of it yet, but apparently somewhere in this episode, she actually goes back to being good, or somewhat being good. Because the final image, and again, not to give much away, but the final image is of her mask that she wore because of her face being blown, half her face being blown off, her mask being left behind. So, really interesting, really unique take on a returning character, I will say that. And again, it's a unique take that a lot of fans question as to why. And this is a question that it doesn't matter what series this is. A lot of people always question, why take a character that's good, that's good and sweet and innocent, why take her and turn her bad? Why do that? Why make her a villain, even if it's temporary? Even if she finds out the truth, why do this to her? It doesn't make sense, right? Of course it doesn't. But that, of course, is biker mice for you. That's the biker mice from Mars. I mean, what are you going to do? But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, this is a series that I have to say was this was a series that was nice to see. It was nice to see, and it was nice to see that it was not a full-on reboot. It was basically a continuation, aka continuation of the original series / soft retcon reboot. Kind of like how some people are describing the new Transformers trilogy that starts with Age of Extinction. That basically it's a continuation, but it takes place years later. You got a new set of characters, human allies, if you will. And it's sort of a reboot, but it's sort of a soft reboot retcon compared, to the others. So basically it's a continuation, aka soft reboot at times as well. Continuation, soft reboot, whatever you want to call it. And that's how people like me, fans like me, view Biker Mice from Mars. We view it in that 2006, Biker Mice from Mars 2006. That's how we view it. We view it as a continuation of the previous series. And we also view it as a bit of a soft reboot retcon because it takes place a few years later. So my recommendation is you watch this series. I think there's somebody here on the YT that has a majority of the episodes up, so check them out if you can. And that's all I'm really going to say here, folks. Just check out Biker Mice from Mars 2006. I think you'll enjoy it. And that's about it. So till then, God bless, take care, and I am out.